flamethrower man, nice and dirty and helpless.
I guess so. You're a real badass flamethrower guy. Who the shit is... Oh, that's the Escort?
The Escort.
Luckily, he called and hired those escorts.
Smart thinking. Steve has been the man with the plan from the beginning.
Hello, everyone. We're coming to you not live from my basement in Jefferson County, Colorado.
Well, we're alive. But...
We are broadcasting on what amounts to modern-day public access TV, so I guess that makes this show the rough equivalent of Wayne's World.
Excellent.
I'm Brandon, and I'm here with the Wayne to my Garth, my good friend Steve.
Hey, everybody.
Let's make sure you're all in the right place. This is the Booze, Bullshit, and B-Movies podcast, where we watch random movies that aren't likely to make many all-time greats lists and see if any of them are actually pretty good.
That's right.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing okay. Glad that the deep freeze is over. It's 50 degrees in sunny Denver today, so...
Yeah, the weather has picked up nicely.
Hopefully, I got field work tomorrow, so hopefully it stays good tomorrow.
Yeah, and we do thank you for joining us again this week. If you've made it to this point in the broadcast and are just now realizing that you're in the wrong place, that's okay. You're well beyond the 60-second limit where you're counted as a listener. But I can tell you that this podcast is currently tied for the highest-ranked podcast on Spotify that deals with the subject matter of booze and low-budget movies. So it may just be in your best interest to hang out.
I was not aware of that. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, we have a 5-star rating, and you can't get higher than that.
Well, that's true.
So if you have a, a minimum threshold,
hey,
we're tops. Tops in the game. So what have you guys been up to this week?
Busy hockey weekend as per usual. John played up in the 92-80 pond hockey tournament at Keystone. So if you've never been up, Keystone has the largest Zamboni serviced lake outdoor skating surface in the U.S. It's like 5 or 6 acres, something like that they zam. And usually they've got one like regular size rink, set of boards set up. You can just play pickup anytime you want. They've got some areas where you can like stick and puck, and then they've got the other half of the lake that's just for skating around and no hockey shenanigans. But this weekend, they close it all down to public skating and set up a bazillion little pond hockey rinks and go to town.
Oh, nice.
Scads and scads of teams in different divisions and whatnot, and so his high school, they always block this weekend off, so they don't have any high school games, and they just go up there. They get to split up, get with their buddies on the team and go, and the coaches have a team, and they've got the best name. They're called the FHA Bankrollers. So as the provider of funds, so that was it. And then Emma had a couple games against University of Denver over the weekend, and her Sun Devils kicked the living shit out of the Pioneers, 10-1 and 9-0.
Oh wow.
7-0. 7-0 was the second game. So I'm gonna fly out and watch her play in Salt Lake City this weekend. So
nice.
It should be fun. But how about you guys?
Oh, we haven't really been up to much. Just the 8-year-old hockey stuff this weekend. So
that's fun.
So yeah, back to the ice range, back and forth, and that's about it, really.
Excellent. Yeah, I did a little of your, as you were talking about last week, I think, or maybe it's before we were recording, but trying to cleanse a little bit of the crap around the house, and went through my closet for the first time in a couple of years and purged a bunch of the hanging clothes. So
yeah, make you feel better?
Oh, kinda. I had a big ass pile of things to take to Goodwill, but my closet doesn't look any less cluttered than it did when I started.
That can be the downside when you see that like Sisyphean task.
Yeah.
And you've been working for hours and you feel like you haven't gotten anywhere.
Nope. But, it'll be good. Good to pass some things on to people that need them more than I do. And go from there. So.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Other than that, just hanging out with the dog. So.
Yeah, that's about it around here. In this week's podcast news, I can tell you that I want to give a little shout out to a listener in Fallbrook, California. Don't know who they are. Don't know if they're listening this week or not.
I know nary a soul in California.
But thanks to the person from Fallbrook tuning in, we have now reached coast-to-coast status.
Woohoo!
We've got New York, Virginia, Florida, now California.
Nice.
From sea to shining sea.
Aren't we the bee's knees?
But whoever you are out there in Cali, hopefully you're listening in this week, because we've been waiting 3 months for someone from the West Coast to listen to this podcast so we can make our claim on Coast to Coast status.
Yep.
And we have finally achieved that thanks to you.
Yeah, so send us a shout out. Tell us who you are. We want to meet you.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you have made our dreams come true, and we really appreciate that.
that's true. That's true. We have a high bar that we set, so thank you. Thank you for getting us there.
And in addition to this person from Fallbrook, California, I also want to give a quick shout out to whatever individual or individuals who are listening along with us across the Atlantic Ocean over in the UK, because this week we are going to jump over there and watch, hopefully, some of that famous dry British humor with a movie called Severance. So what can you tell us about Severance, Steve?
Well, this is a 2009 comedy horror film that's got about an hour and 36-minute runtime by the director Christopher Smith. Christopher Smith had directed nothing I'd ever heard of before. On the various websites for this sort of research information, they threw out a movie called Triangle and a movie called The Black Death. Those are his claims to fame. This masterpiece had a budget of approximately £5 million. It had a huge opening weekend of August 25th, 2009 in the US and Canada, where it brought in a whopping $8,316.
Well, I mean, we in the U.S. here, we generally like to watch movies where people are speaking English. So,
yeah, two people separated by a common language. Lifetime, it's brought in just slightly north of $5.5 million. So didn't quite make up its budget, but we kid a bit about the $8,000 opening weekend, but I believe it was only in 2 theaters. So that's not horrible for kind of an relatively unknown director.
I mean, that's what, like 800 tickets or so?
Yeah, that's nothing to shake stick at. So now the bigger claim to fame on this is the co-writer. Christopher wrote this along with James Moran. James is known for a movie that I believe is on our wish list called Cockneys versus Zombies.
That one is on there to be watched at some point.
And there are he had just had a ton of different shorts that he was known for, a bunch of UK television shows.
I am also known for my shorts.
Yes, that's what I've heard. And he did an episode of Doctor Who back in the day. So that's our writer, James Moran. This Severance movie stars Danny Dyer as Steve, so that should be easy for us to remember. He was in a TV show called EastEnders, and must have had a pretty significant role because he had I didn't write down the number of episodes, and the number 1,200 is in my brain, but that can't possibly be right. So he was in a lot of episodes of EastEnders. And he just had a long sheet of TV credits, mostly British stuff. So nothing I'd really ever heard of. And then we've got Laura Harris as Maggie. She was on a season of the show 24, the Kiefer Sutherland show. I always liked that one. And in a movie called Snowmageddon, which is a made-for-TV movie, but that could possibly end up on our list as well. It's got at least heading in that right direction, name-wise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. With all the other various Mageddons we
Yes. We have a Mageddon-thon. And then we got Tim McInerney as Richard, and he had a role on the television show The Black Adder, which I hadn't heard of that, obviously. Never seen one, but I'm aware of its existence. And he was also in an episode of Doctor Who. Then we've got Claudie Blakely, who is Jill, and she's just had a shit ton of TV credits, over 100. And then Andy Nyman as Gordon. Andy's got a lot of TV credits, but he seemed to really veer over onto the voice acting credits. So you may be familiar through your children of the Shaun the Sheep franchise.
Okay.
They've got movies and TV shows and stuff. He had a bunch of those. He was listed as a voice actor in the Minions movie and in Despicable Me 3. So a lot of those that if you've got youngsters, the Despicable Me movies are great. So. And then I skipped over him on our list, you may have noticed, but what I would say is our big star is a gentleman named Toby Stevens, who plays the role of Harris. This dude has been in a lot of stuff. He has a recurring role on the most recent Lost in Space franchise.
Okay.
It's on Prime, I believe it is. He was in the Black Sails kind of pirate movie or a mini series. I guess it had 4 or 5 seasons there. I think that was on Showtime. That was a great show. He was in the movie Hunter Killer about the submarines. It was just released a few years ago. He was in that movie 13 Hours about the Benghazi
okay, sure, yeah.
raid. And he was in Die Another Day, the James Bond movie. He was Gustav Graves. He was the bad guy.
Oh.
So, we got a real actor here. And then he also was listed on 10 or 12 different James Bond radio dramas that he was providing a voice to. So we've got a nearly A-list, or I would say it, an A-list actor here.
Yeah, sounds like.
So that's pretty good for our genre of movies, the caliber that we are used to. Now, getting into some of our fun facts. Christopher Smith was a stickler for who he wanted to be in this film. In fact, so much so it took him 4 months to cast it. This is the polar opposite to Samurai Cop, where Amir said, met the dude, and he's like, "You're it. you got the right hair." So we'll see if it worked out, if his diligence pays off or not here when we watch this bad boy. The logo for the Palisades Defense, which is the fictional company in this particular movie, is a square with one corner missing. And it's a sly hint to the company's way of doing business by cutting corners. That should be interesting to see there. Yeah, I think so. Evidently the Palisades Defense has a munition called the CRM-114 Platoon Buster landmine. And that is a reference to the CRM-114 radio in 1964's Dr. Strangelove. Danny Dyer's character is fed grapes by a bevy of robed girls in a similar scene to one in Stanley Kubrick's 1971 A Clockwork Orange.
Okay.
So there's a little nod there to the greats that went before. And there's a second reference to Dr. Strangelove in the ending song, "We'll Meet Again." You could probably hum a couple bars for us there. That is played at the end of both movies. However, the versions are different. So a nice kind of a tip of the cap to old Stanley Kubrick there. This film is set in the Eastern European country of Hungary and was shot in 14 different forest locations split between Hungary and the Isle of Man. So I would expect to see some crazy bastards in there if you've ever seen that Isle of Man TT motorcycle race.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys are nuts. I don't know how they sit on their motorcycles with balls that big. This was the winner of the Best Screenplay in the 2007 International Fantasy Film Awards.
Yeah, that's a prestigious award.
You say that. Well, get this. It was the winner of the Danger After Dark Award, which was a kind of a public pick'em award in the 2007 Philadelphia Film Festival.
Ooh, fly, Eagles, fly.
There you go. Now, let's get to our not-so-fun fact. On 28 April of 2009, the BBC reported that the murder of a 17-year-old student from Norfolk was allegedly based on a scene from the film. According to the BBC News report, Greenwich Crown Court was told how Simon Everett from Great Yarmouth was tied up and petrol poured down his throat before he was set on fire. Simon's body was found in a woodland at Maltbury in June of 2008. Jurors in the trial of Jonathan Clark and 2 other co-defendants were played a scene from Severance and told that when Mr. Clark had watched the DVD, he made a comment to this effect, quote, "Wouldn't it be wicked if you could actually do that to someone in real life?" Unquote. On 29 May 2009, the trio was convicted of Everett's murder. So there was justice, but that's some effed up stuff there.
Yeah, I have never watched one of these movies and thought I wanted to do anything in them on my own time.
No. Maybe fly, but not none of the horror stuff. So let's get on to our reviews. What are people saying about this? So Peter Travers of Rolling Stone says, director and co-writer Christopher Smith mischievously blending The Office and Friday the 13th keeps things fierce and funny enough to give Steve Carell ideas. And then Scott Tobias of the AV Club says, Severance still seems a few rewrites away from living up to its potential. But it's remarkable how much just a modicum of wit can spice up the standard backwoods slice and dice. Scaring people with a horror film is easy. Entertaining them takes a little skill. That's a kind of a positive review there. Yeah. Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune says, I prefer my horror with a chaser of wit and Severance. A modest but very lively British import serves it up in harsh but high style. Then the Village Voice says, Smith's Grand Genou tableaux are strung together. They lack any forward momentum. Some take inspired comic flight, the rest crash to the ground. And like so much else in Severance, go splat. The Village Voice, I think, are not fans.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag there.
Yeah. Then Owen Gleiberman of the Entertainment Weekly says, the chintzy characters, hair-raising deaths, and one spectacular rocket launcher joke aren't enough to give, quote-unquote, Hostel a run for its blood. So this is not ranking up there in the world of Hostel or those similar type things. So, Brandon, why don't you give us our plot summary?
Well, and to be fair, I think I saw on IMDb that this does have a 6.4 rating.
Thank you. Yep, I did.
It's got, according to your notes here, a 66% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep.
And a 62 out of a scale to 100 on Metacritic.
Yeah, so it's got some favorable reviews, that's for sure.
It's certainly got better ratings than many of the movies we watch.
That is a fact.
So I guess on the scale, on our curve, they're doing just fine.
Yeah, this is the high bar to meet.
And as far as the plot summary goes, what we've got here is a team-building weekend in the mountains of Eastern Europe going horribly wrong for the sales division of a multinational weapons company called Palisade Defense, when the folks involved in the getaway become the victims of a group of crazed killers who will stop at nothing to see them dead.
Yeah. To go along with our comment of two people separated by a common language, you see how they spelled defense. So that was not a typo on my part.
Oh, I understand.
It was in English. So if you care to watch along with us, this bad boy is available on Crackle, Peacock, Plex, Pluto TV, the Roku channel, Tubi. And if you have some of those extra genre-specific add-on things to your Prime, there's Magnolia Selects and Monsters and Nightmares on Prime. Or you can just go on plain old Prime Video and rent it for the $5 or whatever it is. So plenty of options, plenty of free. Most of those have ad supported, but those are the days we live in.
And before we head over to the bar here quick, I want to give you another bit of German knowledge from one of my favorite Instagram followers, German onliners. A term that I think is appropriate for this podcast.
Alrighty.
So this word means a good friend of yours who you spend so much time drinking with that when you're thinking of going to the bar, they're the first person you would call. And that word
Isn't that
is
just friend? Freunde?
Well, no, they have a special term for this particular sort of friend.
Okay.
You know German. They can't just call everyone a Freund.
That's true.
You have to be a certain thing. So this is the Saufkampan.
Saufkampan.
And then there is another term for someone who may be even closer to you with regard to your alcohol consumption, and that would be your Saufbruder.
Ah, I like that one better.
So they have a word, I guess. It's been around since the 1870s for someone who is your drinking brother. So with that, Saufbruder, why don't we head over to the bar and grab a cocktail? All right, Steve. So as we get set to watch this movie about a military defense corporation, I understand you have sort of a weaponry-themed cocktail for us this week. So what are we drinking?
That's right. We are going to drink the Flamethrower. As we are wont to do, it's essentially a margarita with a jalapeno in it. But it was supposed to be a frozen, and we're dainty at times, but we're not that girly. So
I do not care for frozen.
We are going to do ours on the rocks. So
that sounds better to me.
So the Flamethrower per serving is 2 ounces of tequila, probably a Blanco type, nothing too dark. An ounce of an orange liqueur, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice, as always, 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, and then if you're going to use a blender, they want you to do half a cup or so of ice, and then a half a cup of strawberries, and then 1 slice of jalapeno. I took a bunch of strawberries and a jalapeno, chopped it up, and blitzed it in my NutriBullet thingy at home. So we've got strawberry jalapeno puree.
Sounds good. I don't know that I've ever had a spicy margarita.
I'm not sure I have either, so we're going to give her a shot. I think this is going to be kind of on the in the vein of that kiwi drink that we had.
Well, that kiwi drink was good, so we should be so lucky.
And we'll strain it off into our rocks glass.
Look, you can smell the jalapeno.
Yeah, who knows? I bought one there at Safeway too, and I know the ones we've been getting from King Supers here recently have been really freaking hot. So, guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Here we go. The flamethrower.
All right, man.
Cheers. Oh, it's got a little heat to it.
That is spicier than I expected. Oof.
That's good.
I don't know.
I like it. Now, I'm not sure we could drink more than like 2 of them, but
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know that it'd be my go-to.
it's something, we're broadening our horizons.
Yeah, if it were like some sort of a themed event, or if I were just in the mood for a spicy cocktail.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had spicy, like chili beers and stuff before, and I was not a fan, but I like this a little better.
Not getting very much strawberry out of it. I'm getting mostly jalapeno.
So, maybe half a jalapeno next time for...
Well, it's just, I have a sweet tooth,
But-
and it just doesn't, not touching my
That's
sweet
true.
tooth.
Maybe we up the simple syrup just a little bit next time, too. Anyway, not bad.
No, it's not bad.
It's less chewy than the White Russians were last week. And you're getting some vitamin C.
Yeah, that's true.
So-
And it is better than the salmiakki Koskenkorva.
Yes, that it is. That it is. So, let's take our drinks over and let's watch this bad boy.
Sounds good. This is the part where we watch the movie. All right, Steve, you set?
I'm set.
All right, well, we just finished watching Severance,
Yes.
and we'll try to run through the plot here relatively quickly. We start off with a scene of 2 women and a guy running through the woods, running away from something, we don't know what. The 2 women are apparently Hungarian speakers, and the guy is an English speaker.
Yep.
The women fall in a pit, and the guy runs off.
Brandon thought he was going to have to read subtitles again.
So the Hungarian women in the pit, find a little chunk of wood in there and decide they have to strip their clothes off and create like a rope out of their clothing so they can try to get out of this hole. The guy runs off. He's caught in a snare trap and then gutted by a man in a mask.
Yep.
And then we jump from this scene to a bus ride with the Palisade Defense
employees.
marketing staff on their employee retreat. And there we kind of set our characters. There's Dick, who's trying to manage everyone.
Yep, he's the Michael Scott.
There's Jill, who complains about the lack of diversity
Yep.
in their HR video. Our favorite character, Steve,
Of course.
is eating shrooms. And now,
No, first he's not eating shrooms. He's arranging for escorts.
That's right. He was on his computer ordering escorts to the hotel.
Yes.
And then he takes out his gallon-sized Ziploc bag of shrooms and eats the entire thing.
He's ready for the weekend.
There is Maggie, a kind of skeptical American blonde woman with sort of a Charlize Theron thing going on.
Yep.
There is Billy, the black guy of the movie.
Yes.
And then what was the guy's name who was the Dwight?
That was Gordon.
Gordon, the Dwight Schrute of this movie.
And then we had Harris in there, who was
Harris-
kind of like the good-looking dude.
Yeah, the one who wanted to be in charge but wasn't or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So they're driving down the road and they find the road is blocked. Dick sees an alternate route around the trees, and the bus driver, he's not fucking going that way.
It's like, no way in hell am I going down that sketchy, scary dirt road. Bad things happen down there.
So there's the argument between Dick, who says, hey, we paid you to drive the bus, and the bus driver says, I'm fucking not going that way.
And
So
somehow they're understanding each other when the bus driver is speaking Hungarian and Dick's speaking English.
their faces got their point across.
Yeah, that's true.
Dick decides that his team are going to get off the bus and walk down the road, and the bus driver turns his bus around and drives his happy ass off.
Yeah, well, the bus driver kicked their asses off. He's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. You guys can get the fuck off.
So they're walking through the woods. Steve, high on shrooms, kind of wanders off on his own, takes his pants off, drops them down around his ankles, and decides he's going to take a piss.
And that was the first time we saw the guy in the balaclava.
And he then claims he saw a guy in a balaclava. Who was it? Was it Maggie? That sort of talked him down from his drug high.
Yes.
And said, Steve, you're just stoned. Let's just keep walking. Everything's fine.
She put him on a leash. That was very nice of her.
I got to keep track of Steve. Otherwise, you don't know what the hell he's going to do.
That's right.
So they wander through the woods. They find this shitty-looking hotel. And they decide that it is Palisade Defense's newly acquired luxury lodge resort.
Right, and it's a piece of shit boarded up.
Yeah, and the place is just a dump. They decide to stay the night, go inside.
They need to locate the generator so that they can get the power turned on, and that is when Harris discovers some old files.
Dick is trying to start his team-building spiel. Steve starts having an out-of-body experience.
Yep.
Then they decide to go scout the area. Gordon goes to the pool, bounces on the diving board.
And apparently falls in. We don't see him fall, but we see him covered with leaves and wet.
Harris locates these medical files that are written in Russian, so he can't read them. And then they're going to spend the night. So Dick ends up in a cheese coma,
Yep.
where he has this weird sex-killing dream. And they get together after Dick wakes up, and they're reviewing these documents Harris found. None of them speak Russian, so they can't really read them.
Yeah.
But somebody deciphers that there's some sort of medical records.
Yeah.
And so then so Harris
tells a story about this facility was used as a pre-World War I asylum, and the inmates took over the asylum, so to speak, and Palisades nerve gas was used to gas them to get them out.
And then Jill and Steve...
But somebody survived.
Yeah, so in Harris's story, one man survives, and he is now taking revenge on anyone Palisade affiliated that they happen to find in the woods. Jill and Steve give their competing kind of ghost stories about what this place is about. Jill's is another story about Palisade being a bad company and terrible things happening. Steve's is about how this place was actually some sort of convalescent home for the elderly where they ended up having sex with all the nurses.
Yep. There were Benny Hill dressed, scantily clad nurses running around, but the old men couldn't take care of business.
Which Steve later admits was a made-up story.
Yes.
It was the best of the three stories.
It was, obviously.
But obviously a fabrication. Then they eat this pie that they found.
Yeah, Gordon finds a mincemeat pie wrapped in foil. It's like, oh, I will heat this up.
Yeah, and they ate it, and they found a tooth in it.
Human tooth.
Human tooth. And then they decide it's bedtime. So Jill is in her nightshirt. And I got to give her credit for that because, like I said, when we were watching the movie, I would not have changed out of my day clothes.
Nope. I'd be sleeping with my boots on.
Yeah, I'd be just ready to run at any time because this place was a dump. And so, but she gets up in the middle of the night in her nightshirt, ends up looking out a window and sees a man in a balaclava again. Screams, brings the whole crew together, and they talk her down off this ledge of something terrible is happening. Let's just spend the night. See what happens in the morning. They wake up in the morning. They're having a group chat about what they're going to do. They decide that Jill and Harris will head up the hill to see if they can get cell phone service to call for help, and the rest of the group will do a team building exercise.
So they start paintballing while Jill and Harris walk up the hill.
When the paintball event is done, Gordon steps in a bear trap. Steve and Billy try to pry the bear trap off his legs, but lose their grip 5 or 6 times, and the bear trap just keeps clamping down on his leg over and over again, and eventually saws his leg off.
At that point, Harris and Jill didn't make it to the top of the hill, but they found the abandoned bus, and the driver was lying over the edge of a creek, and he was
gutted.
Not alive any longer.
Jill and Harris bring the bus down, and then they decide they're going to flee in the bus. But as they're driving down the road, someone throws some road spikes out in the street and blows their tires. Everyone comes to, the bus is tipped over, it's nighttime, Jill is kind of stumbling out of the bus, kind of in shell shock. She sees Harris, they do a weird wave at each other.
Yep.
And she stumbles off into the woods. A guy comes along with a machete and chops Harris's head off. And he is conscious through the head chopping experience, which validates his previous theory that after you're decapitated, you stay conscious for 2 to 3 minutes.
And he gives us an eyebrow raise and says, see, I was right, motherfucker.
Jill wanders off in the woods. She's caught by one of the guys, one of the bad guys, and then she is tied to a tree, doused with gasoline, and lit on fire. And the guy who lights her on fire says, this is for Palisade.
Yes.
The other folks who were not captured by the bad guys decide they have to head back to the lodge. Yeah, so Maggie, Steve, Dick, and Billy carry Gordon back to the lodge.
Yep.
So everyone who hasn't been killed yet is now back to the lodge, and they're holed up there. They're going to wait for morning and try to come up with a new plan. They give Gordon ecstasy so that he won't notice that his leg's been cut off.
Yeah, just take the edge off, as Steve said.
And so Steve and Maggie are sitting at a table. They're talking. And someone sneaks in from off camera and drags Gordon off. While they're distracted, Billy, Maggie, and Steve follow the set of stairs where they think Gordon was dragged off to.
Yeah, into the creepy basement.
They find the lair of the bad guys.
Yes.
And the bad guy has Gordon tied up, carved the Palisade logo in his stomach, and killed him. The bad guy spins around, he's got a shotgun, and he shoots Billy in the chest. Billy covers Maggie's mouth, they're hidden in a corner, and he's like, no, don't make a sound, the bad guy will find you. And he dies with honor, protecting the woman that he loves.
Yep, Billy had a crush on Maggie and unrequited love.
At that point, Maggie decides to just turn total badass.
Yep.
She storms into the room where dead Gordon is tied up without caring if anyone sees her or anything. Eventually pulls the machete out of the table.
Yeah.
It didn't come out like the sword in the stone.
Bit of a struggle.
How did she kill the first bad guy?
There was only one bad guy inside there.
Yeah, how'd she kill that one?
Remember, she was kind of running away from him. She fell through the hole in the floor. Mm-hmm. And he was about to shoot her, and that's when Steve put the machete.
Oh, that's right.
She had dropped the machete when she fell. Steve put the machete through the bad guy's back. He fell down into the floor, and then she picked up a shotgun and blew his head off.
That's right. They've killed the bad guy, this one bad guy, but then they walk out the door, and
they're thinking, we are Bob's our uncle. We are ready to go.
Yep, we're gonna head home. Everything's fine.
And there's 5 guys standing outside with
at least
automatic weapons staring at him. And she blows one of those guys away.
She does have a shotgun now. She took the shotgun off the first guy and then threatens the rest of them with the shotgun, and they run off. In the interim, Dick was wandering through the woods trying to get away and stepped on a landmine. So he's just kind of been standing there in the woods the whole time this is going on. The remaining 5 or 7 bad guys are chasing Steve and Maggie through the woods. And the rest of the movie is just one big chase scene where one by one, the bad guys get picked off. Steve ends up getting stabbed in the chest, but not a serious wound.
Right.
And in the same fight scene, he takes a machete and sticks it in the bad guy's ass. But not far enough to kill him, just far enough to really injure him seriously. Yeah,
really ruin his day.
That comes back later when
they're fighting and Steve kicks him in the chest and he falls down on his ass.
He just falls down and sits down on the machete. And the machete goes the rest of the way up his ass. And he eventually hits something important.
Then it's game over. That was the guy that threw the knife on Steve and stabbed him. So
that was the best kill of the whole movie.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Then Steve and Maggie are fighting their way through the woods. They're being chased by the bad guys. So they find their way to the actual Palisade Resort, where the 2 women and the guy from the very beginning of the movie are dancing and having a fine time.
Yeah, and the guy from the beginning is the CEO of the company.
This guy George says, "What the hell's going on?" And they explain the situation to him, and he pulls out a shoulder-fired rocket launcher. And he says, "I'm going to kill all these guys. Just point me in their direction.
Mark them as terrorists. I'm going to shoot them. This is the new toy."
So he fires off his shoulder-fired rocket launcher, and it misses all of the bad guys, goes straight up in the air, and shoots down a commercial airliner.
Yeah.
Not great work by Palisade Defense.
No.
So then they run off in the woods, and they get separated. Maggie finds this Severance,
right.
World War I, World War II era.
Yeah, it looked like World War II, Soviet bloc era. She finds a phone and tries to call for help, but gets put on hold.
She sits on hold for 20 seconds and decides it's had enough of that. Runs out into a clearing, an open area, and there's the last of the bad guys.
Yep, it's the flamethrower guy, the guy who killed Jill. He had been chasing her through the labyrinth of the building. She fell, busted up her leg a little bit. He had her in his sights, ready to blast her with the flamethrower, and that's when the automatic weapon fire rings out.
And it turns out the topless escort saves the day. So when Steve, at the very beginning of the movie, was hiring escorts to meet him at the lodge, that was the decision that saved, well, not everyone's life, but
saved his and Jill's, or Maggie's. And it turns out that, Steve just ended up at when he passed out, he was right beside the hole that the girls had fallen in, and he was awakened by them chucking their log with their clothes attached.
So that was that little bit was sort of like the kind of Tarantino-y thing where
bring it all together.
They had the one scene at the very beginning of the movie, and then the one scene in the last 2 minutes.
Tied it all together.
Yeah, tied it all together.
And then they got to the lake, got in the rowboat, and rowed off into the sunset.
Where Steve's one recommendation for the resolution of the movie.
Well, Steve and Maggie are staring at each other's eyes like, oh, it's a love story.
So yeah, they were the star-crossed pair, and as they're floating off on their John boat, Steve asks Maggie if she wants to have a foursome with the two escorts.
But she didn't say no.
She didn't say no. That's true.
That was the end of the movie.
All right, so Steve, how do you rate Severance?
Well, I enjoyed it. It was funny. I think I kind of drug a little bit. The timing was not the best, but not timing, but maybe pacing of it. I laughed. I had fun. I'm going to give this I thought more about what you said last week about our 3-slot grading program is probably too limiting. So I would call this a upper middle shelf.
I think you're right. And yeah, that's like what I was saying last week. Like, if this were another one where we had 5 tiers instead of 3, it wouldn't be the top.
Yeah, it's in that 3 to 4.
Yeah. So it was good. It was worth watching.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This was not some sort of like...
It wasn't Hostel or Saw or any of those slasher movies.
And there wasn't, like whatever, like zombie mythology or vampires or whatever. It was just sort of your kind of deliverance-y kind of movie where there's, just some weirdos
greed.
In the woods.
Yeah, corporate greed, arms dealers are evil kind of thing.
Yeah.
Government's corrupt.
So,
a little bit of that,
but with kind of the weirdo psycho killers in the woods sort of genre versus whatever mythical creatures or whatever.
Yeah, no elves and barns. What do you think about this one, Brandon?
I think I probably agree with you. It was 3-ish, 4-ish, like whatever. If we were doing the Rotten Tomatoes scale, I mean, I think that 66% or whatever is probably about right.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So it's right on if we're doing the 3-tiered system, I'd probably put it right on the border of like a 2 or 3, which is 66%.
Yep.
Math works.
Yeah, that was good. I don't know what we're watching next week. We need to figure that out.
I have not even looked into it yet.
No. So it'll be a surprise for everybody. Stay tuned, watch the feed. We'll put a teaser out at some point.
I guess that will wrap it up for tonight's episode.
Yeah.
We do appreciate everyone who tunes in and listens along.
Drop us a line on one of those, the various ways to contact us through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Twitter or wherever the hell, Instagram. We're just about everywhere you could be. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Steve.
Stay fresh, cheese balls.
Bye.
That's why, from now on, whenever I go anywhere, I'm going to make sure Steve has hired escorts. Because they just might save our lives.
They might.